Michael, K through 8 schools are expanding nationally, yet the CDD plans to close or change the majority of K through 8s, lowering the total of K through 8s in the district from 11 to 2, and sending middle schoolers to large standalone middle schools. How is this going to affect Minneapolis? And then after that, I just want to put a segue into that to get back to the transportation budget suddenly changing that you mentioned earlier. But first and foremost, how will this K through 8 slashing K through 8 schools to just middle schools? What is that? How will that affect Minneapolis?
Well, I think Zeinab really summed it up well about we have families who choose a district that a school that's K through 8 so that they can get as many children as possible into the school, be able to have access to the same teachers, the same support staff, the same principal and vice principals. You develop a relationship over time with that, and that helps you feel more secure in your child's education, and it helps the children feel more of a connection to the school and the families. One of the things we know that helps and why we see more K-8s springing up across the country is it helps with retention efforts of families in the district and of students, because those students have a continual relationship beyond just K-5. And if we look at the history of the district and the numbers right now, the time period when we lose the most students in Minneapolis to we don't even know where, to be truthful, is the transition from 5th grade out of K-5 into a middle school. We lose by far the most students there than any other time period in K-12 education. K-8s are designed to help alleviate that problem. And by seeing a loss of these K-8 schools, we're going to see, one, parents having to choose, well, do I go to my child's elementary school? Do I go to my child's middle school? Putting more stress on them, more stress on the family unit as they try to figure out, how do I navigate education, especially if they're first generation high school graduates, let alone going on to college. It's like that's how you build community knowledge, family knowledge, that then ripples across not just that family, but the entire community to really begin to lift everyone else up in education. And we're going to see the destruction of that. And a prime example of how is the district not listening to us, the constituents who have families in the district who have gone through it. In North, we had a bunch of families come together with teachers and say, we want a K-8 and this is why we want a K-8. And they had a long list of things that they said would help them ensure the better education of their children. And we don't see any of that in the district CDD proposal, which is extremely problematic because those families put a lot of effort into that, along with the school employees, and they came up with ideas that we know work, not just there, but across the country. How do you get students engaged in school to stay in school? How do you help empower teachers to teach other population groups that they're not as familiar with? How do you help bring in support staff to get the child to feel like they have someone they can talk to in the school and that they want to wake up and go see in the morning?
And really quick, Michael, before I jump to a question that Nikema has, I want to ask you, why do you believe the Minneapolis Public School Board believes that slashing a K through 8 to maybe a K through 5 is going to benefit students?
They haven't proven any reason why. And that's what's really disturbing. The proof should be on them, on the district, on the administration to show us this is going to work and this is why. And they haven't done that. And that's really insulting. It's very insulting to the people who live in the district.
Yeah, to kind of throw it out there and say, hey, it's going to work. How? We don't know. It's just going to work. And that again speaks to the beginning of not the misunderstanding, but I would say the lack of information or the cloud I think everybody's experiencing. This is being provided and saying that it's going to help people. And if the community says, well, how? And there's no answer, that, as you said, it sounds very insulting. Nikema, speaking to special ed and K through 8, what is the correlation of K through 8 affecting special ed and then slashing K through 8 to a K through 5? What does that mean to special ed students?
So just to piggyback off of some of the issues that Michael brought up, a lot of times in these discussions, if we don't have a child who is personally impacted by special education, those students get left behind. They're invisible within this conversation. And a mother of a child in special education within Minneapolis Public Schools sent a message through my website after she saw, our activism around these issues. And she basically shared her story. And she talked about the fact that she has a child, I believe with autism, who has had a very difficult time with some behavioral issues at his current school. His school is a K-8 school. He has spent, she and the staff have spent a lot of time trying to get her son on track, trying to get him comfortable in the environment and around his teachers and establish a solid routine for him to be successful. And now she's concerned that that will all be thrown out the window if he has to leave that school by the 5th grade. And that's something that people aren't really thinking about, that the district is not thinking about, how disruptive this is going to be to some of our most vulnerable children. Yeah. It's like the children are just an afterthought. Financial considerations, I think, are number one. And what is happening to our children don't matter. And it's just, I'm sure that there's so many parents who are watching this who can relate to that. And particularly those parents who have children with special needs that they feel are being overlooked in this plan. The district was already doing a disservice to too many children who receive special education services. And I fear that this will only exacerbate the situation.